Potatoes have got to be the best staple food that you can grow for yourself, and they are pretty easy to grow too. And you cannot beat the silky texture of freshly harvested new potatoes either. So we grow them twice in 1 year. We do an outdoor sowing in March for a June harvest, and then we do an extra early sowing in February under cover in our polytunnels for a May harvest, which is a really welcome treat when last year's stored potatoes are starting to go spongy and also the garden is only just getting going for the year. We also plant potatoes outdoors throughout April for our main crop harvest. These are the ones we store through winter. Potatoes really are one of the best crops for self-sufficiency in our temperate climate here in the UK. And so this is exactly what we are doing in the polytunnel today. It is the 4th of February and we are sowing our extra early potatoes for a May harvest. So last year we planted out our early potatoes in the polytunnel on the 10th of February. But it was a bit of a last minute decision to do it, as it was the first year we had tried growing potatoes early and we hadn't pre-chitted the potatoes. So that meant we probably lost at least 2 weeks of growing time whilst the potatoes started chitting under the ground. So this year it was our mission to get them in a little bit earlier for starters, and also to have got our seed potatoes early so we could start to chit them in advance so that they get a little bit more growing time this year. And to chit potatoes, all you need to do is lay them out in trays or boxes like this in a warm sunny place for a couple of weeks until you see small shoots appearing just like these. And actually you don't really want them any bigger than that. If they get too long, then it's best to snap them off before planting. So Dan is just making the holes and marking out the spacing where we're going to put each seed potato in. And last year we planted about 44 seed potatoes through the middle section bed of this polytunnel. But we enjoyed the potatoes so much that this year we are doubling up and we're planting on both sides of this polytunnel, and we've got about 120 seed potatoes that we're going to be putting in. And this is all the digging we would do for these potatoes. These beds are actually mainly no-dig beds, and all we've done to prepare them is just lightly rake off the wood chip layer that we keep on top. And so all we're doing now is just making a bit of a deeper hole to put the seed potato in. And then what we're going to do is mound compost on top of each of the seed potatoes, and we'll increase that as the potatoes grow. And as you will see, when we get to harvest these potatoes, we don't even dig then. We are literally able to harvest with our hands using this really simple method. And if you saw our polytunnel potato planting video from last year, you may notice how much better the water pressure is that we've got in our tunnels now. And if you would like to see how we have improved our off-grid watering system, then check out the 2-part video series that Dan made about installing our drip lines into these polytunnels, and you can see how we got ourselves much better pressure. So we've got 4 different varieties of early potatoes that we're going to be planting in here today. We've got Swifts that we did last year and we really like the Swifts. We've got Sharps, Charlottes and International Kidney. And we're going to put all of the Swifts and half of the Charlottes down this side of the tunnel. And then we're going to put the rest of the Charlottes and then the Sharps and the International Kidney down this end of the polytunnel. Dan has just been bringing in all of our compost, so we are ready to get planting.
So now I'm just putting a little bit of compost in each hole, and then that's just to give a bit of renewed nutrients there. Once they start to show up in a few weeks' time, the green shoots coming through, we'll then earth up again, because most potatoes are going to be forming nearer the top of the surface rather than down at the bottom of the hole.
So that is 112 seed potatoes planted up into this polytunnel, and we will come back and take a look in a few weeks' time when hopefully all of these potatoes are sprouting and coming through. It's the 9th of March today, and I wanted to share an update on how our extra early new potatoes are coming along in the polytunnel. And as you can see, we have got some really good growth on this variety here, and this is the Swifts, and the chits were further ahead, and they have definitely sprouted into life a lot quicker than any of the other varieties. The other ones are just starting to show signs of movement and some sprouts coming through, but the Swifts are definitely way ahead. Six weeks after planting, the potatoes had grown enough to be earthed up for the first time. Potatoes form near the surface of the soil, so doing this keeps them covered and stops them from turning green. The growth is absolutely crazy. Again, they have just leapt into life literally in the last week. We've been watering these potatoes 3 times a week since the growth began, 2 times with our drip lines and once per week directly by hand, as it's really important to keep potatoes well watered as the tubers begin to form up. So bringing you another update on our extra early potatoes. It is the 26th of April today. We planted these potatoes at the beginning of February. And we are going to be harvesting our first new potatoes probably in the next few days. This variety here, this was our Swifts, and they took off like rockets. And they're actually starting to die back, I think, now. And this particular variety often doesn't flower where it's such an early variety. And I was looking at them the other day thinking they were thirsty. And then I realized that, no, actually, I think they are dying back, which is a great sign because that means that they are ready to harvest. They've been in for at least 10 weeks now, and it is said that Swifts can form potatoes in 7 to 10 weeks. So getting really excited about our first harvest. What has been really interesting is all of these other potatoes looked massively behind. The Swifts are a particularly low growing variety, but now all of our other varieties have taken off. They are looking amazing. Some of them are actually starting to flower now as well. So we'll be harvesting this side of the polytunnel first. We'll give this side probably another week or so at the most, and we'll harvest all of this side second. We have to have it all out before the middle of May because that is when we are always planting up the summer crops into our polytunnels. So we will share with you more about our harvests really soon. It's the 28th of April today, and we are going to start harvesting our extra early Swift new potatoes from this side of the polytunnel. We planted all of these potatoes on the same day at the beginning of February, but this variety, as you can see, is ready the soonest, they're actually starting to die back. And down here you can see the distinct growth habit differences between the swift potatoes and here where it changes to a Charlotte potato. And right here we've actually got a beautiful flower coming out. And I just noticed down here a minute ago there is actually a little potato just poking through the soil. So we're going to leave these ones just a little bit longer. But yeah, we're going to harvest the super early swift potatoes today. They're massive. So this is just from our first 2 plants, and we've got some whoppers. I think we have grown main crop potatoes in April. And where we earthed up the potatoes with fresh compost, what I'm actually doing as we're harvesting is just smoothing the compost back out over the beds, and this is how we are replenishing this no dig bed for our second planting this year. So we were only going to harvest a few plants of the swifts today, but now that we have seen how big they are coming out, we've decided to harvest the whole row of swifts, and maybe the others won't be quite as far behind as we thought. And all of this is great learning. This is only the second year that we've grown the extra early potatoes in our polytunnel. And we're realising now we probably could have harvested this particular variety probably a week ago. So yeah, all good learning. That would have been really helpful for trying to get our next crop, which is all of our melons, in a little bit sooner. So learning every year, that is the great thing about gardening and growing. And one of the amazing benefits of growing potatoes in no dig beds is that I can just harvest these potatoes really easily with my hands. And I think that is another beautiful way of getting even more connected with the food that we have grown and the food that we are going to eat. So when the potato foliage began to emerge, we kept earthing up the potatoes with fresh compost. That keeps them covered up to stop the potatoes going green. And now, as you can see, by spreading out that fresh compost, our no-dig beds are completely ready for their next planting. So this is our amazing harvest of swift potatoes. We're going to take some of these now and cook them up for our lunch, and then we're going to come back and weigh all of these and see what we have actually got. that is 83 pounds of beautiful Swift potatoes that we have just harvested, plus what we just had for lunch, which was absolutely delicious. We are amazingly happy with the harvest from in here so far. After our epic harvest of Swift potatoes a few days ago, we are back in the tunnel today to harvest all of the remaining potatoes that we have in our polytunnel. It is the 3rd of May today, and we're going to see what we get from the other 4 varieties we planted for our extra early harvest. So the next variety we're harvesting is our Charlottes, and we've got a few Charlottes at the top of the polytunnel here and a few at the bottom. So it's going to be really interesting to see if there's any difference between those, because the top of our polytunnel gets a little bit warmer, and as you can see, this variety has come on to flower sooner than any of the others as well. Right, so this is our harvest of Charlottes from the top of the tunnel, and we've got a real mixture of sizes. We've got some really big potatoes, but we've also got quite a lot of nice sized new potatoes. So we'll see what we get from this end now. Okay, so this is our first smaller bag of Charlottes, and that is 11.5 pounds. And we've got another bag here, and that is 17.5 pounds. So that means we have got 29 pounds from our Charlotte potatoes, and that is from a 2 kg bag of seed potatoes. So that is 25 pounds of beautiful Charlotte potatoes from one bag of seed potatoes. And compared to the Swift, that is quite a lot less. We were averaging 41.5 pounds of Swift potatoes per bag of seed potatoes. But what is nice with these Charlottes is we've got a lot of smaller, typical new potato sizes, whereas the Swifts had grown supersized. And the variety that we're harvesting now is International Kidney. This is our International Kidney, and it's really obvious that the yield on this variety is a lot less. So quite surprisingly, that harvest is still 24 pounds. And our last variety to harvest today is Sharps Express. Our final variety to weigh are the Sharps Express. So let's see what we've got. And we've done this over 2 bags again. That is 1 bag at £15. And the second bag is £15 as well. So that gives us £30 from 1 bag of seed potatoes of the Sharps Express. So we have just harvested another £83 of potatoes from 3 bags of seed potato, and that's added to our £83 from the Swift potatoes that we harvested the other day, giving us a massive total harvest of £166 of new potatoes that we have just finished harvesting on the 3rd of May. Potatoes have got to be one of the best crops that you can grow in our temperate climate when it comes to self-sufficiency gardening. We massively value our undercover growing space for extending the season, meaning that we can grow a whole extra crop of potatoes in 1 year in this way. And in fact, you could actually grow a 3rd crop of potatoes if you wanted to do a late planting for a Christmas harvest as well. We hope that you've enjoyed this video today. If you have, we would massively appreciate if you could click the thumbs up button just below the video. Any comments or questions that you have, just pop them down below as well, and we look forward to seeing you here again soon. Thanks for watching. Peace and plants.